We come to life on a quest. What we seek lies within us. I call it power within. And more than anything, we seek to realize our power within. Come with me on this quest to open your power within.
Hello and welcome back to Open Your Power Within. I've had a little bit of a spiritual sabbatical, but during this time I have received so many wonderful spiritual insights that it's really taken something complex, like what is the subconscious mind and how does it relate to the conscious and the superconscious, and it's distilled it down to a much clearer way of understanding it and using it than I've ever heard of before. And between my research and my deeper meditations, I've been able to get this information through divine grace. I'm very excited to share this with you. I hope it's been worth the wait. We are going to talk about consciousness. We are going to talk about the mind, and actually they're slightly different, so we're also going to discern the difference between the two. And I'm going to use a few different metaphors simply because something like consciousness doesn't neatly package into typical metaphors that reference ideas and creation and the created world. So this is simply to convey the general idea. There is no perfect metaphor to encapsulate all of it. So let's start with the metaphor that we all use and know daily. Let's talk about the different layers of consciousness from the perspective of our cell or mobile phone. So we have this device, and it's really only useful when it has power, right? If you ever had a cell phone, or you can't charge it, it's pretty useless and it's very frustrating. And so the device itself, this tangible thing with all the different apps that work on it, really need energy, electricity, in order to function. And the same is true with us. You know, we have a body and we have a mind, a mental function, but both would be inaccessible for our use without a life force. Life force is conscious, and that consciousness is emanating into us just as the charger emanates electricity into that cell phone battery. And then all of the conscious mind and the subconscious and everything can work. But really it's all funneling down from the superconscious source. And that really the conscious mind is just this little spark in comparison to the infinite well of that superconscious dominion. So here we have a phone, and it's being given the power from the superconscious mind. The superconscious mind is the source of all creation. It's source of all wisdom, all creativity, all love, peace, these higher states of consciousness, and it is omniscient and connected to everything, because nothing in creation can exist without that conscious electrical life force that is moving through everything, including us. And so we are actually all trying to get back to that source state. That is our native state. And we've heard that before, but it is true. It's hard to believe because we live so much from this body experience and its limited applications and sensory range. But the superconsciousness can perceive far more than the range of our perception. So that's what makes the phone power. It has to have electricity. And then on the phone, we're using things all the time. We're using these things called applications, or what we call apps for short. And these apps are really useful because they're already coded for us. You know, when we want to send a text message, we don't have to worry about coding that app first and making the system operational on both ends to be able to send a message. It's already been encoded, and it's simply executing its file. And that brings us to the next level down from superconsciousness, which is what we call subconscious, which is really kind of a very confusing term because sub would think, well, it's subconscious. That means it's below consciousness, right? No, actually, the subconsciousness sits between the superconscious state and the little spark of the ego or the consciousness that's running all this body senses and so forth. The subconscious actually is the next layer. It would probably be more aptly named supra-consciousness, but it's really important to understand that this is really a mental faculty. It's one that's very useful to navigate creation. We don't want to have to figure out how to read, write, talk, walk, feed ourselves, drive, work every day. You know, it would be impossible. We have to have these already pre-programmed into habits. And so we've done that, and they're all stored in our, what we call our subconscious mind. And so that's very useful. But because whatever we put into that program, it executes as it's been programmed. It can have quite a power over our consciousness, though, when we're like, speak up, learn to speak up, ask for what you want. But we've programmed ourselves to stay quiet. And then we have to overcome that subconscious habit in order to do what we want, right? So that's its power. Once we've programmed it, it can have a lot of hold on our consciousness if we're not using our consciousness in a way that is making full use of its power. So now let's talk about the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is honestly, it's the programmer. It is the one that is encoding the subconscious. It's what's coding the apps. Or you could also use the metaphor that it is the voicemail. You know, you're leaving a voicemail and it plays back exactly as you said it. It doesn't have a will of its own. This is really important to understand, so I'll say it again. The subconscious does not create. It is not the source of creativity or insight or the soul. It's really as simple as a rewritable drive. You can record something like a program, and then you can erase it and re-record over it. That's it. Very useful to have, but it's really the real consciousness, which is either our superconsciousness or our consciousness that's actually running the show. The ego, the soul. We've heard this before. The subconscious is just something that operates and it sits between them because it's bi-directional. The soul or the higher power, our power within, can speak to us through the faculty of intuition. This is direct perception of truth. It doesn't rely on the five senses. That's the consciousness. So we can get a hunch about something from our superconsciousness into that subconscious faculty, and then it drips down into our conscious mind. We go, I'm thinking about this person. I wonder what's going on. And we call them, and lo and behold, they were just ready to call us. So when we get a hunch, that's the superconscious that's dripping in just a little bit. So yeah, it's a little like if somebody had never seen a phone before or technology was really foreign to them. If they saw you talking through a cell phone, they would think you're talking to this square thing, and it wouldn't make sense to them. They'd have to understand, no, you're not talking to this thing. You're talking to somebody on the other side of it. And that's kind of what the subconscious faculty is. So when we think that it's the soul or that it's all powerful and it's all knowing and deeply creative and our imagination and all that, it's not true. That's funneling down from our superconsciousness through the phone or the faculty of the subconscious mind into the consciousness. And so when we understand the power of each of these, it can really help us because we're using them as they were intended to help us in stilling the mind and having greater access to that intuitive faculty, or transcending the consciousness and the subconscious all together and reabsorbing into that superconscious state and having that true experience of the real reality behind this created movie screen that we're all dancing in right now.